in Iraq, basically. We was told afterwards, when we eventually got back across the border, there was somewhere in the region of 30,000 troops coming into our immediate area where we was, and at that point we was actually surrounded by them already. The immediate shock of everything died down very, very quickly. We realised we'd got 3 bodies, we'd got a prisoner of war, we'd got a vehicle, deniable operation. What the hell do we do with it? Initially we was going to bury the bodies there and then, but it would have been ludicrous because their forces would have come to that location anyway and seen them, because we could only dig very shallow graves. So we got the prisoner, threw him on the MSV, and the bodies, we threw them back in their own vehicle, and one of our lads volunteered to drive the vehicle, and he had an ulterior motive in doing so, because this was a covered vehicle. It had a roof, but it also had a heater, and the intention was that we would take the vehicle with us. We then bugged out, as we call it, and moved away from the location, but heading the opposite direction to what they came from. I think we were in the region of about 75 to maybe 100 miles behind enemy lines at this stage. Throughout that night was quite a nightmare, because we were surrounded by a massive force, and the intention was that an helicopter would come in that night, take the bodies, the vehicle, and the prisoner of war. At that stage, when we stopped and the guy got out of the vehicle that had been driving the bodies around all night, he smelt quite badly, because obviously these bodies were starting to decompose in the back of the vehicle, but he was totally unaware of that, because he'd been nice and warm all night in his little vehicle, which was slightly amusing, and it, you know, even though it was horrific what had happened, but it brought a few smiles on people's faces that he was nice and warm, but he stunk to high heaven. The helicopter came in when it was dark, and they would fly at ultra low level, literally 10 or 15 feet off the edge. When we stopped and the guy got out of the vehicle that had been driving the bodies around all night, he smelt quite badly, because obviously these bodies were starting to decompose in the back of the vehicle, but he was totally unaware of that, because he'd been nice and warm all night in his little vehicle, which was slightly amusing, and it, you know, even though it was horrific what had happened, but it brought a few smiles on people's faces that he was nice and warm, but he stunk to high heaven. The helicopter came in when it was dark, and they would fly at ultra low level, literally 10 or 15 feet off the ground. The pilots were incredibly good at night on night goggles. We got the vehicle ready with the bodies in the vehicle, ready to push on board the aircraft. The helicopter landed, massive amount of noise. Anyway, the RAF loadmaster decided that that vehicle wasn't going anywhere near the helicopter, so we was immediately in a predicament. What the hell do we do with it? The prisoner went on the aircraft, a bit of commotion, and the aircraft took off. We're still stuck with an Iraqi vehicle with 3 dead bodies in it. What do we do? Our fears were definitely the fact that if we keep taking these around with us and we do get captured, they're going to look at it and say, well, these people, these European soldiers have got 3 of our men dead in a vehicle, and they would probably kill us. So we had to dispose of the bodies. There was a gully, and we just dug it out even more in the space of about half hour, and we literally just threw the vehicle into the pit, obviously with the bodies inside, and shoved 2 anti-tank mines that we had that we carried around with us, which are massive, big mines. Shoved them under the vehicle, poured the rest of the kerosene and the diesel fuel that we weren't using around the vehicle, shoved a big can of petrol inside the vehicle with the bodies, and put a timer on the devices, on the mines, set the timer to go off. I think it was around about 5 o'clock the following morning, or that morning I should say, and which would give us you know, 5 or 6 hours to get away, as far away from it as possible. And that's exactly what happened. So lo and behold, we drove all night to find another location, and literally at about 5 o'clock that morning, we didn't hear it, but we could see a flash on the horizon as this thing had gone up and hopefully incinerated and disposed of the evidence and the bodies that were there. And the flash died down as it was just starting to come daylight. That was that.
Victor 2, an Iraqi military installation responsible for communications and the guiding of mobile Scuds. Heavily defended. A classic hit-and-run night raid that echoes the SAS days of World War II.
We used to get sit reps every night from headquarters telling us what was going on. An intelligence report came in that there's a big microwave installation to our north, which they wanted us to go and recce it with the intention of destroying it. Basically what we had was a building, a square building, with a massive antenna in it, with microwave dishes all around it. And it was surrounded by a number of different vehicles, buildings, porta cabins, and the such like. We was tasked basically to go into the installation with a big bag of explosives, which would be on a safety fuse, which would give us in the region of about a minute and a half to get back out. The theory was that we might be fighting our way in and out, because we didn't know how many troops would be in there. But that's how we was going to work it. Peace through superior firepower, that's how we was going to do it. Those two vehicles that was very close to the objective, two big vehicles, one of them with what looked like a water bowser or a fuel bowser. I was tasked to go and ID that one and just watch that. Everything was very, very quiet. You know, you could literally hear a pin drop. We never thought that we would fail in his mission. As for thinking about not coming back, yeah, it entered my mind every night, and it normally entered my mind just before we started off. And at that point I would always think, well, is this going to be the night? You know, and I'd say little things to myself and occasionally offer myself a little prayer that everything would be all right for not just myself, but for all the boys.
Shut the fuck up!
We'd initiated the contact and the whole place erupted.